All right, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Washington and will be meeting US President Donald Trump at the White House shortly. Now, ahead of the meeting, the Indian Prime Minister held crucial bilaterals as well. He met Tesla CEO Elon Musk at the Blair House. He later posted on X that him and Musk talked about India's efforts towards reform and furthering minimum government, maximum governance. It was followed by a meeting with Indian origin entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy.
It was a pleasure and an honor to welcome Prime Minister Modi here. Hope he has a wonderful visit, and it was a great meeting.
Prime Minister Modi also met with NSA Michael Waltz. The discussions touched upon ways to further deepen the India-US Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership. Ahead of the meeting, senior Trump admin officials said the ties between India and the United States are the most crucial bilateral relationship of the 21st century. And the two nations are moving towards signing new defense frameworks, defense procurements by India from the United States. This sets the stage for a crucial diplomatic encounter. Now, the Modi-Trump bonhomie has been evident through previous encounters that were marked by spectacular joint appearances and massive rallies. The world saw the two leaders miss cheering crowds at the Howdy Modi event in Houston in 2019. And a year later at the Namaste Trump event in India's Ahmedabad. Both leaders have called each other close friends. Prime Minister Modi is the fourth world leader after Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, and Jordan's King Abdullah II to meet Trump in the United States in his second presidential term. This visit underscores the importance the Trump presidency accords to India and vice versa. India has moved strategically to smooth out any friction points. New Delhi has demonstrated goodwill by lowering certain tariffs. These preemptive measures aim to forestall potential demands from Trump, who has not hesitated to weaponize tariffs against allies and adversaries alike. The visit comes against the backdrop of deportation of illegal Indian immigrants. Now, earlier today, a second flight with Indians deported from the United States, this was yesterday, the flight will arrive in India on Saturday. During the Modi-Trump meeting, the discussions will also center on defense and security cooperation. Prime Minister Modi has also held a meeting with newly appointed Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Behind the diplomatic warmth, the stakes are high. Trump is expected to reciprocate with a visit to India for the next Quad meeting. Both leaders appear poised to maintain their strategic partnership despite potential challenges.
I'd like to see closer bilateral cooperation between India and the United States. I think there's room for multilateral cooperation with Japan and Australia through the Quad, which was an excellent idea and which made some progress during the Biden administration. They will undoubtedly talk about tariffs. That's appropriate whenever you have two big countries with extensive trading relations, and they're always difficult issues because the economies, businesses of the two countries are involved.
All right, joining us live on the broadcast is our correspondent Susan Tehrani from New York. Also joining us on the broadcast is Mr. Mukesh Aghi, President and Chief Executive Officer of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, joining us live from New York as well. Mr. Mukesh Aghi, if I could just come to you first. Just a short while ago, we saw President Donald Trump impose reciprocal tariffs. I just want to highlight some of the comments that he made during his presser. He was talking to reporters about how India is a very hard country to do business in. It has the highest tariffs. And he also spoke about that, like I mentioned, it's a hard country to do business in, and he will speak to Prime Minister Modi soon. That being said, how do you think these sort of discussions will come up during the meet?
Well, tariff is a process of negotiation on part of President Trump. We've seen that in the case of Mexico, seen in the case of Canada. So I strongly believe that that is the way to basically position his discussion with Prime Minister Modi. But more important, you have to understand that the relationship between the two countries is not just purely trade, it's geopolitical, it's definitely economic, it's on technology, it's on people to people. So trade will come in, and I think the reciprocity is not just against India, it's around the world itself. And they will study this until April and come back with some recommendation. I believe India will react to it and make sure that the speed bumps are removed so the relationship moves forward.
Right, absolutely. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because earlier we were speaking to Mr. Raymond Vickery, who also mentioned that this could be a negotiation tactic and that it is very much in line with how Trump moves to announce something radical just ahead of the meeting. However, he did also mention that the India-US relationship is strong enough for it to not be derailed because of this. That being said, we have heard comments in the past as well where Trump has often called India the tariff king and a big abuser of trade ties. Do you expect that this will put some sort of a strain in relations? And also I wanted to ask you, we've seen the bonhomie between the two leaders. How do you think the relationship could or might change in Trump 2.0?
Well, I don't think the relationship will change. And the tariff issue putting a dent, I think the relationship will continue to move forward. You have to understand that U.S. companies are very keen to access Indian market. U.S. companies are saying, give us level playing field and market access. And I think India, there's enough maturity on both sides to be able to sort out some of these speed bumps so the relationship moves forward. The Modi administration on its own basically reduced a certain amount of tariffs, and then with the reciprocity coming in, they will study also just like the US and see where they can basically engage. You have to understand the US also has high tariffs on agriculture, over 100% itself. So I think you just can't point fingers just at India and other countries. We also have certain amount of tariffs specifically protecting the farmers here, just we protect the farmers in India also. So I think it is important that we basically not react to the executive orders. Let's study it, see where it impacts, and find a solution to it.
Right. Mr. Aghi, also if I could just ask you, of course, there are other issues as well. Illegal immigration, a second batch of Indian illegal immigrants being sent back to India. There's the H-1B visa. Of course, there's the issue of China, which both the United States and India might see as a common adversary. How do you, what sort of discussions are you expecting on these fronts?
Well, you have to understand that, yes, you have illegal immigration. We have roughly around 16 million illegal people in the United States, and they constitute roughly 6% of the workforce. The farmers in the field, construction workers, restaurant workers, and approximately 700,000 have gone through the legal process. And with those 700,000, roughly 18,000 are Indians who basically will need to be deported back. And that's normal because, you don't want illegal immigration impacting legal immigration, where H-1B has a legal process where 70% of the H-1B holders every year come from India itself. So I think it is important, and India has done that very carefully and agreed with the U.S. that they will take back illegal Indians in the U.S. as long as they are verified they are Indians itself. Yes, in the discussion there'll be talk on H-1B, but more important is the big elephant in the room is China. You have to understand that China's ambitions are to be the leading power. It sees India as a threat in the Asia-Pacific region, and then it never treats and sees India as an equal. Whereas its stress point with China, with US, is getting bigger and deeper. And so I think that's where India and the US will have a discussion, specifically on the Quad side. You have to understand Trump raised the Quad from a ministerial level to state head level itself. So you will see Trump leveraging Quad to deal with China. And also, I think what we are seeing is the Quad could become an economic zone also, because when you look at the 4 Quad countries, their total GDP is $35 trillion. US has FTA with Australia, it has FTA with Japan, India has some form of trade agreement with Japan and Australia. So if you combine the four, then you can basically leverage a military cooperation into economic zone 2.
All right. Well, Mr. Aghi, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast with your insights on this.
Thank you.
All right. Also, for more on this, we have our correspondent, Susan Tehrani, also joining us from New York. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. Susan, we did hear the comments from President Donald Trump when talking about the reciprocal tariffs. He did speak about how India is a very hard country to do business in and has some of the highest tariffs. That being said, Susan, we were discussing earlier how the United States has really welcomed the moves that India has made to perhaps try and lower some of the tariffs. And as Mr. Aghi mentioned as well, that it's not fair to perhaps just put the blame on India, and also to recognize that the United States has some of the highest tariffs if we were to talk about agriculture, which is almost 100%. So what's your assessment of this, Susan, for him to make these comments right ahead of the meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi?
That's President Trump's style. He goes into meetings, just full force, as the saying goes, like a bull in a China store. And then, some sort of agreement and compromise is reached usually during meetings that he has. And he prefers these bilateral settings as opposed to multilateral settings, perhaps for this very reason, where he can target, a specific country and then talk to the officials and leaders of those countries. Nonetheless, it appears that Donald Trump's comments on tariffs sort of eased the markets. We didn't see the markets go down as much as anticipated. And also, it sort of eased the concerns of business owners here in the United States as well. They looked at it as a negotiating tactic. We're just watching Wall Street, and that's why I'm saying this. And also, he says that, ultimately these tariffs are going to go into effect April 1st. So that gives a little wiggle room for negotiations, if this is a negotiating tactic, and to reach some kind of compromise. That's notably with Europe. When it comes to India, while India has made some goodwill gestures and is planning to do more, ultimately India is going to want something in return as well, naturally, as it should. And that's where Prime Minister Modi is likely going to ask Donald Trump to bring down tariffs on aluminum and steel, American goods. And as you mentioned, those that the United States has already posted tariffs on. So I think the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself understand that. But going into every meeting, as Donald Trump has, and this doesn't seem to be any different, despite their very pleasant relationship with each other, he tries to really go in full force. And he had the microphone, so he had the opportunity to do this.
All right. Well, Susan, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's exactly what Mr. Raymond Vickery was saying to us earlier as well, that it's sort of his style to announce something radical right ahead of a meeting or ahead of a big bilateral, and that may just be a negotiation tactic. However, we have seen that the India-US relationship has proven to be strong enough not to be derailed by these comments, or that's the hope at least. That being said, of course, India is also aiming to increase procurement of American-made security equipment, moving for bilateral trading relationship as well. And we know that there is a new defense framework between India and the United States that may be in the works, and that India may wish to procure some of some equipment from the United States as well when it comes to defense. So do we have any details on this, Susan?
Yeah, so regarding defense cooperation, that is really something that Trump administration officials during that backgrounder wanted to talk a lot about. It's a very positive and mutual sort of thing that both countries wanted to discuss and reach an agreement on. They're moving towards signing a new defense framework, including procurement details. As you mentioned, they want to strengthen India-U.S. defense ties as being a priority under this administration. Modi and Trump will discuss expanding defense sales and ensuring India prioritizes American technology. And now also we know that India is looking to buy American drones as well. And this defense partnership, what the Trump administration hopes is that it'll ultimately expand where India perhaps may at some point replace Russia with the United States. Is that wishful thinking? We don't know yet, but that is what it appears the Trump administration hopes to sort of achieve, to really be that major defense partner with India.
All right. Well, Susan, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on that. We'll, of course, continue to track this closely. And, of course, Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump are set to meet in a short while from now. So thank you so much for this for now. For latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.